today was a fun day, actually. So in textiles class, we got to do some bleaching and dyeing of stuff using powdered high temperature dyes, and like carefully weighing out the fabric is the first thing to do, and then you use that with the dye recipe so you can scale up how much dye powder you use versus how much bicarbonate of soda, if you're using salt, which apparently you only use salt if it's a low temperature dye to help the reaction. If it's a high temperature dye, you don't need salt. And different colors will use low or high temperature because they have different minerals in them. So I brought a blue cotton, sort of denim-y, but not really, button-up shirt that I was going to throw out, and dyed it with a dark blue. There's lots of different techniques you can use for the tie-dye, you know, like the swirl patterns and block patterns, and they're all depending on how you tie it up. So if you want a swirl, you've got to spin your fabric around into like a little like spiral and then tie it up that way. Or if you want concentric circles, you've got to like grab your fabric in the middle, lift it up, and then tie down it. I did folding techniques and then sandwiched the folds between little pieces of plastic so that they would be flat edges where there's no dye. And it actually turned out surprisingly good. While we're waiting for the dye to sit there, because it's like 40 minutes, it's got to be in the bath, we did bleaching as well. So I had a navy blue shirt that was cotton and polyester, so I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Just tried anyway. And used a bleach and bicarb soda mixture and painted on patterns. And it reacted really quickly. Depends on the color of the dyes as to what color the bleach is going to go. So most black shirts, they'll go like an orange or a red, depending on how strong the dye is. But someone's black shirt went green. So that's different. My navy shirt went like a light orangey rust color. Like this. Apparently next week we get to do screen printing. So I've got another shirt I'm going to print on. You know, making use of stuff I was going to throw out, basically. Making it different and new. Maybe I'll use it again, or donate it, I guess. Yeah, every week we learn the new techniques, and then we've got to write it up in our research folder. So at the end of the semester we have a folder with all of these different techniques and how to do them. It is like 1,000,000 degrees. Sweaty. The new unit started in design, fashion history, starting with the function of clothes. So, you know, like what is fashion versus clothing? Why do we wear it? Like, what are people's motivations and what affects it and stuff? You know, it can denote your social status, it can denote your job, it can denote your economic power, like, yeah. So there's a lot of elements that influence the way people dress. There is an acronym for it, and it's like SPEC-TEP, but it's essentially, it's like social, political, environmental, cultural, technological, economical, and psychological. And they all break down really interestingly.
So this was the assignment I did on, you know, the function of clothes and why we wear them. You know, essentially the idea is that, you know, it's clothing is objects you want on the body, whereas fashion is a use of clothing to express identity in various contexts. So it could be, you could wear it for occasion, obviously like a wedding dress or something, to denote your occupation or to express cultural identity. You know, they fulfill specific functions, and they're influenced by a lot of elements, you know, like cultural elements, socioeconomic elements, and environmental factors as well. More functional reasons as to why we will wear clothing, because it's the law, so for safety, or for fitting into a particular environment, or because we don't want naked people running around, for protection from the elements, or for, you know, general modesty. Again, we don't want naked people running around. I mean, I guess some people want naked people running around, but maybe not everybody wants naked people running around. Just some examples of clothing denoting, you know, occupation, or clothing denoting like wealth and status by like branding, decoration or material worth. for various functions of protection, maybe required by law or otherwise, practicality. So here's the acronym again, for influences that, factors that influence the way people dress. If they're social, like the role of gender or age, or what people socially think is acceptable or suitable to wear. Diversity in age, gender, and racial demographics will like increase the pool of socially acceptable clothing, and changing demographics shift these expectations over time. We got given these bits, and then I had to come up with the what actually is the factor. So you could have political influences. So the effect of wars, revolutions, and political shifts and divides in society will affect clothing styles, resource availability, and the socio-political impact and your expression of it. So if you're wearing really politically motivated clothing. Environmental factors influence a lot. So obviously the availability of resources, which impacts textile construction. Things like the environment is affected back the other way through pollution, waste, and sustainability. The climate and climate change affects people's clothing choices, and also people's investment in the transparency and ethics of the industry's environmental impact as well. Cultural stuff. So, that could be tiny micro scale. That could be just your friends or family, or, like a larger scale, your entire community, your heritage, your country. All these things affect, from art, architecture, design, music, dance, film, TV, sport, and history will affect all what people wear, and especially trends in these areas are constantly shifting. Fashion, they say fashion doesn't exist in a bubble. It exists in a million bubbles, and it's all your curated experience of it. Technological factors influence people's clothing options as well. As fabric construction techniques change over time, mass production changes over time, how fashion is communicated and marketed to people, and then changing, roles like jobs and things and responsibilities in the industry as well change over time. Obviously, economical is a big impact on what people wear, and individuals' financial limits, and also the economical state of their purchasing environments. Can limit what is available and its affordability. And the last thing is psychological. I think this is the biggest one, because clothing is, it's used on a personal scale to express identity and your beliefs and your moods, and we wear what we think we want to wear. So that's that big assignment. I struggled with the actual last bit of the assignment, which was we were supposed to find like trends on Vogue's website. And I hate Vogue's website. It is practical only for tracking what happens at major runways and things, not for trends, because trends change every 0.5 seconds in the internet age. So it's just like, yeah, we were supposed to find trends in 2010 versus trends in 2020. And that was really heckin' hard. So before I did this assignment, I actually did it on knowledge I already had, which was trends in like J fashion and stuff, because I feel like it's really well documented, and you can see these trends clearly over time, but especially through street photography and things. So that's the lens with which we're perceiving this. So we can find like trends in 2010. There was a lot of use of lace. Especially outside of like the typical spring season. It was like a newer and trendier materials were used and incorporated in like yukata and things. It was also really popular, even if you weren't in high school, like to do like the joshikose like school uniform look, which I think was influenced by a lot of film and TV at the time. Also, this is when mori came in, this sort of like modest, natural, loose, drapey look. Which I think came about because of the economic time, like after the GFC and everything. This kind of harkens back to a peaceful sort of environment. Where if we contrast that to like 2020, like I think there was like a couple of major trends that like everyone seemed to jump on, which was definitely like the large platforms, like having like a bottom weighted silhouette, but really boxy and lengthened torsos. And you can see this across different styles as well. If you have like Fairy K or like Lolita or tech wear, they all kind of carry these kind of trend elements, even if they're different styles. There's a lot of high contrast. You know, it's breaking away from what's expected of fashion, what is expected of garments, which is kind of like, you know, it's youthful rebellion and it's expressing identity. And obviously this is a very specific lens. This is just street fashion. Fashion is massive, which is why it was so hard to do the Vogue thing, because of how wide fashion is. And like, what are these trends in 2010? I don't know. I've never been on trend. I don't know how to be trend. But yeah.
In CAD class, we're doing Illustrator, learning some more techniques like shortcuts and things, for like, you know, buttons and ways to make things easier and stuff. Like, I learned that there's a big difference between the pen tool and the brush tool today. And there's like circle tools, creating paintable spaces, so like you can draw something out and then like select it all, and then it's like, cool, it now identifies all of these as a paintable space. It's a different way of approaching things to, like, I've used Photoshop and Clip Studio before, and Paint Tool Sci way back in the day. Because it's a vector program, it's not like pixels placed in a location, it's pathing data. Vectors are pathing data, so it's like on the back end, it's essentially like a bunch of pixels, coordinates, and what lines go between them in what form. So it has different ways of manipulating it because of that. But we did a vest, and I think we did a shirt. We did this.
I really wish I didn't leave this stuff at school, but the last thing we did was make a skirt. According to the unit guide, the skirt was supposed to only take us a couple of weeks. You know, carefully going through each step and actually writing out the instructions in the mock-up sheet throughout the process. Most of us did it in one, because that's kind of what the teacher was pushing for. I don't know if she realized it was supposed to take longer than that, and people were really stressing. I only just got it done in time, and I still had to go back later to like fix up a couple of little pieces. But yeah, that's a whole ass skirt, in a very stressful class. But like, it's fine. I feel like I'd be less stressed if there was a bit more clear direction in class for like what we're supposed to attain and what steps we're supposed to be at. But look, I had a reference. There was a fully made mock-up. I just could look at it and kind of figure out what we're supposed to do. But yeah, skirt. Pattern making this week is sleeves 2 electric boogaloo. So the previous week, you know, we did some cuffed sleeves, and like a bell sort of gathered sleeve. This is a sleeve where it's gathered at the top, it still remains slim at the bottom. So in order to do that, you have to do the blousing and opening up at the top, but you've also got to bring it in at the bottom a little bit, and add a facing on. So it kind of makes this weird sort of bell shape. Also did this gathered sleeve with a cuff, which, you know, the same concept can be used as short or long because the process still applies. You just do it on like a longer part of the block. So you've got to open it up for, you know, the gathering and everything. And then we've also got to math out, like, okay, where is the cuff going to sit? This is the center back of the sleeve, where this little split, this little placket is. That's kind of halfway on that point there. Interesting thing I found out about these blocks. This is going to be the back, so behind your arm, and this is in front of your arm. They're not the same shape. It looks mirrored, but there's actually more give on the back than the front. So if you folded this in half, this curve would stick out this side a little bit. And the reasons for that is that when you bend your elbow, you know, it's tightening the sleeve around your arm. So you need to have more fabric around the back and less in the front, so it doesn't bulk out at the front and it doesn't tighten too much around the back when you bend your arm. And we made that shape as well. More sleeves, a little tiny cap sleeve. Just cutting it away, opening up a little bit so it's not too tight around the shoulder, and obviously adding a facing, so it's this weird shape. And the variation on that is making it all gathered, so we gotta open it up like the previous one, making this weird bell shape. So basically, like, opens up there and squinches down at the bottom, so that when this gathers, it unsquinches. And then we got one last one here. Is this one where it has a like elasticated section, so you need to be able to put in a bit for the elastic to go. So that's the casing. You know, so we used our cap sleeve, the pattern from here, and we're like, okay, so we need an elastic casing, and then we also need this bottom part, the frill. So we want to add on these two chunks, mathing that all out, getting that. Makes sense to me. Ugh. My recording app just called me Prince Charming. Thanks. Anyway, that is pretty much it for this week. There's assignments to do. The biggest one was that design one that took forever, and I stayed up very late to do that because I'm like, I'm not doing this in the last minute again. It's a textiles one. I think it's going to be a bigger one because we have to like log what we're going to do every week, and then also do an inspiration board, and then also do research, and they're all due on the same day as well. So I need to not get behind on that. So we'll see how we go. But otherwise, have a good weekend. Bye bye.